Captain Lee Daeho stared at the massive alien ship through the window of his command deck. The ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space, beautiful but strange. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Lieutenant Park So-min from her station. She was the smartest person on the ship when it came to understanding aliens. Her job was to figure out how these creatures thought and acted. Daeho nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The image showed a tall, thin creature made of what looked like living glass. Its voice was musical, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am High Speaker Veltar of the Valori. We welcome you to the Galactic Coalition." This was the moment Daeho had trained for his whole life. Humans had only learned to travel faster than light 5 years ago. Now they were meeting with aliens who had been doing it for thousands of years. "Thank you for the welcome," Daeho replied. "We are honored to be here." The alien smiled, or at least Daeho thought it was a smile. With crystal beings, it was hard to tell. "You will find our ways different from yours. We have learned much in our long history. War as you humans know it is a thing of the past for us." Dr. Park So-min looked up from her notes. She had been studying everything the Coalition had sent them about their society. What she learned was strange. These aliens fought wars, but not like humans did. Commander Kim Tae-woo stood behind Daeho. He was older, with gray hair and suspicious eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humans reached the stars. "Captain," he whispered, "this doesn't feel right. No species just gives up real warfare." The High Speaker continued talking. "In 7 days you will witness how civilized beings handle conflict. The Valori and the Threnodi have a dispute over the Kepler 442 system. You will observe how we resolve such matters." Daeho tried to understand. "You mean you're going to fight a war?" "Not fight, dear human. We conduct a proper resolution. No species has practiced your primitive warfare for over 800 years. We have evolved beyond such brutality." After the call ended, Daeho gathered his senior officers in the meeting room. The walls showed star maps and information about the 12 alien species in the Coalition. "What do we know about their wars?" Daeho asked. Dr. Park pulled up her research on the main screen. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. They send formal challenges. They announce their battle plans weeks in advance. They even warn civilians to evacuate before any fighting starts." "That's not war," Commander Kim said, shaking his head. "That's theater." "The casualty numbers support that," Park continued. "In their last conflict, over 50,000 ships participated. Only 12 beings died, and that was considered a tragedy." Lieutenant Colonel Choi Hyun-woo, their tactical expert, looked confused. "How do you fight a war where nobody dies?" "They use special weapons that disable ships instead of destroying them," Park explained. "When a ship is killed in battle, it shuts down and waits to be collected. The crew is perfectly safe." Commander Kim stood up and walked to the window. Outside, more alien ships were arriving for the coming conflict. He could see the elegant Valori crystal ships and the complex metal structures of the Threnodi vessels. "Captain, I've studied warfare my entire life," Kim said. "This isn't warfare. This is a game with rules that both sides agree to follow." "Maybe that's better," suggested Major Yoon Ji-hai, their chief engineer. "Fewer people die." "Maybe," Kim replied. "But what happens when someone doesn't want to play by the rules?" Dr. Park had been thinking the same thing. Her studies showed that all 12 coalition species had evolved to be less aggressive over thousands of years. They had changed their biology and culture to avoid real violence. "Sir," she said to Daeho, "I think they invited us because they need soldiers. Real soldiers." "For what?" Daeho asked. "I don't know yet. But think about it. Why invite a new species that they consider primitive? Why specifically invite us to watch their war?" The next day, more alien ships arrived. Admiral Kang Min-ho came aboard Daeho's ship for a meeting with the coalition leaders. Kang was the highest-ranking human in space, a careful man who understood politics as well as warfare. "The coalition has made us an offer," Kang told the assembled officers. "They want us to participate in the conflict as junior partners." "What does that mean?" Choi asked. "We follow their rules. We use their weapons. We fight their way," Kang explained. Commander Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They want us to be their toy soldiers." "Perhaps," Kang said. "But this is our chance to prove ourselves worthy of joining the coalition. The benefits are enormous: technology, trade, protection." Dr. Park was reading more reports about the upcoming conflict. The Valori and Threnodi were fighting over mining rights to a system rich in rare metals. Both sides had filed formal complaints with the Coalition Council. Both had requested a proper resolution through honorable conflict. "Captain," she said, "the battle plans are already public. Both sides have announced exactly what they plan to do and when they plan to do it." Deho looked at the plans. The Valori would attack from the north with their crystal ships. The Threnodi would defend using their mobile fortresses. They would fight for exactly 72 hours, then stop to count who had won. "This is insane," Commander Kim muttered. "They're telling each other how to beat them." "It's civilized," Dr. Park corrected. "They want to prove who is stronger without actually hurting anyone." "But what if someone really wanted to win?" Choi asked. That question hung in the air as the human ships moved into position. They had been assigned to support the Valori fleet, following strict instructions about weapon use and engagement rules. Captain Deho looked at his crew. They were good soldiers trained to fight and win, but now they had to learn a new way of war, a way that seemed to go against every instinct they had. The Coalition had no idea what they had invited into their perfect, peaceful wars. Humans were not like the other species. They had not evolved away from their aggressive nature. They still remembered what it meant to fight for survival. In 3 days, the war would begin. Everyone expected it to be like all the others, a careful dance with predetermined steps and a polite ending. They were wrong. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council lasted for 3 days. Captain Lee Deho watched the proceedings from the observation deck of the human flagship, feeling like an animal in a zoo. 12 different alien species argued about what to do with humanity. The elegant Valori wanted humans restricted to non-combat roles. The scholarly Threnodi demanded humans be banned from all military operations. The proud Castron warrior poets were the only ones who seemed interested in human tactics. "They're afraid of us," said Dr. Park So-min, reading the translated debates. "Every species is calling us dangerously unpredictable and evolutionarily primitive." Commander Kim Tae-woo snorted. "Primitive?" "We ended their little rebellion in 10 minutes. Their advanced tactics couldn't handle one squad of creative thinking. General Baek Seung-ho was trying to manage the political crisis from Earth. His messages were getting more urgent every day. "The Coalition is threatening to revoke our membership invitation," he reported. "Some species want to quarantine our entire solar system." But while the politicians argued, the war between the Valori and Threnodi continued. And things were not going according to plan. Captain Jang Woo-jin received his new orders with barely contained frustration. "Reconnaissance only," he read aloud to his Special Forces team. "No engagement with enemy forces. No tactical interference. Observe and report, sir," said Sergeant Lee Min-ho. "Those are spy orders, not soldier orders." "I know," Jang replied. But Admiral Kang was very clear. "We can't afford another diplomatic incident." Jang's team was assigned to monitor Threnodi fleet movements in the outer system. It should have been a simple job. Watch the enemy ships, count their numbers, report their positions. But Jang was a soldier, not a diplomat. When he saw the Threnodi making obvious mistakes, every instinct told him to act. "Look at this," said Corporal Kim Yoo-jin, pointing at the tactical display. "They're sending supply convoys through the asteroid field with no escort. And their main fleet is spread across 3 different sectors," added Private Oh Sung-min. "No mutual support, no backup plans." Jang studied the enemy positions with growing amazement. "They're not even trying to protect themselves. It's like they want to be attacked." Dr. Shin Yoon-ji had been assigned to Jang's team to study the psychological effects of human warfare on alien species. Her initial reports were disturbing. "The Threnodi crews we captured are showing signs of severe stress," she reported. "They keep asking when we're going to follow proper procedures and release them." "What proper procedures?" Jang asked. "In coalition warfare, captured crews are exchanged within 24 hours, Shin explained. "Both sides know this, so capture is just a temporary inconvenience." "That's insane," said Sergeant Lee. "Why would you give your enemies back immediately?" "Because the point isn't to win," Shin replied. "The point is to demonstrate superior skill without actually hurting anyone." Jang was getting reports from across the battlefield that supported this theory. Coalition forces on both sides were fighting with what humans would consider deliberate incompetence. They announced their attacks in advance. They avoided targeting critical systems. They even sent medical aid to disabled enemy ships. "Sir," Corporal Kim reported, I'm tracking a Threnody supply convoy heading directly through Sector 7. No guards, predictable route, carrying enough material to supply their entire fleet. Zhang stared at the tactical display. Every military instinct screamed at him to act. One quick strike would cripple the Threnody war effort. The convoy was practically defenseless. Our orders are to observe only, he reminded his team. Sir, said Private O quietly, what if we just observed really closely? 3 hours later, Zhang found himself leading his team in what would later be called aggressive reconnaissance. They weren't attacking the convoy, he told himself. They were just gathering detailed intelligence about enemy capabilities. The fact that their intelligence gathering involved boarding enemy ships, securing their cargo, and taking their crews prisoner was just thorough observation. Contact Admiral Kang, Zhang ordered after his team had secured the entire convoy. Tell him we've gathered extensive intelligence about Threnody supply operations. The response was immediate and furious. Captain Zhang, you're to return to base immediately. Admiral Kang's voice crackled with anger. This is exactly what we were told not to do, but the damage was already done. The capture of the supply convoy had crippled the Threnody war effort in ways that months of traditional coalition warfare had not. More importantly, it had demonstrated something that terrified every species in the galaxy. Dr. Parkseman was studying the alien reaction reports when she made a disturbing discovery. Captain, she told Deho, I don't think they're angry about our tactics. I think they're afraid of our thinking. What do you mean? Look at these psychological profiles, Park said, showing him her research. Every coalition species has evolved to avoid conflict escalation. When they fight, part of their brain is always looking for ways to minimize damage and end the conflict quickly. That sounds reasonable, Deho said. But we don't have that limitation, Park continued. When we fight to win completely. We escalate until the enemy can't fight back. That's terrifying to species that evolved away from that kind of thinking. Meanwhile, Captain Zhang was facing a formal military tribunal. Representatives from 6 coalition species attended virtually to observe the proceedings. Captain Zhang, said Admiral Kang, explain why you captured an enemy convoy when your orders specifically prohibited combat operations. Sir, we were conducting reconnaissance, Yang replied carefully. The convoy represented a significant intelligence opportunity. High Speaker Veltar's crystalline voice interrupted. The human commander seized military assets belonging to a coalition member species. This action violates every principle of civilized warfare. With respect, Zhang said, we prevented those assets from being used against coalition forces. Isn't that a good thing? The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Shin Yunji was taking notes on the alien reactions. The Valori delegation was literally glowing brighter with stress. The Threnody representatives had increased their harmonic frequencies to levels that indicated extreme agitation. They can't understand his logic, Shin whispered to Dr. Park. To them, preventing enemy effectiveness is almost as bad as direct aggression. The tribunal continued for hours. Each coalition species explained why human tactics were unacceptable. Zhang listened with growing frustration as they described his successful mission as a violation of galactic law. Captain, said War Singer Castor of the Castron delegation, your methods achieved remarkable results. But results are not the purpose of proper warfare. Then what is the purpose? Zhang asked. To demonstrate superiority without causing lasting harm, Castor replied. To resolve disputes through skill rather than destruction. But what if the enemy doesn't want to resolve disputes? Zhang pressed. What if they want to destroy you? Another long silence. Finally, Elder Threnvor of the Threnody spoke. No civilized species would seek total destruction of their opponents. Such thinking disappeared from the galaxy long ago. Dr. Park felt a chill run down her spine. She had been studying galactic history, and a disturbing pattern was emerging. Every coalition species had stories about ancient enemies who practiced total warfare. Enemies who were eventually defeated or driven away. But what if those enemies returned? That night, as the tribunal adjourned without reaching a decision about humanity's role in the coalition, long-range sensors picked up something strange at the edge of the galaxy. Large objects were moving between the stars. Too large to be asteroids, too organized to be natural phenomena. Admiral Kang received the first report at 300 hours. Sir, the communications officer reported, Deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from outside the galaxy. How massive? Kang asked. Sir, the largest readings are bigger than our entire fleet. Captain Deho was awakened 20 minutes later. As he dressed and headed to the command center, he wondered if the coalition's perfect. Peaceful wars had prepared them for whatever was coming. Based on what he had learned about galactic civilization, he strongly suspected the answer was no. The galaxy was about to remember why some species never evolved away from the ability to fight real wars. The war began with music. Captain Lee Dae-ho watched in amazement as both fleets broadcast elaborate songs across all communication channels. The Valori sang in crystalline tones that made the air itself seem to shimmer. The Threnodi responded with complex harmonies that their 4 vocal cords created. This is how they start every conflict, Dr. Park So-min explained from her station. The music announces their intentions and honors their ancestors. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Hyun-woo shook his head. On Earth, we started wars with surprise attacks, not concerts. The human ships hung back behind the main Valori fleet. Admiral Kang Min-ho had given clear orders. Observe, learn, and follow coalition protocols exactly. Do nothing to embarrass humanity in their first galactic war. Commander Kim Tae-woo studied the tactical displays with growing disbelief. Look at this, he said, pointing to the screen. The Threnodi just broadcast their complete defensive positions. Every ship, every weapon, every patrol route. It's proper form, said Major Yoon Ji-hai, reading from the Coalition War Manual. Both sides must have equal information to ensure fair combat. Fair combat? Kim laughed bitterly. War isn't supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be won. High Speaker Veltar's voice came over the communication system. Human vessels, you will observe engagement pattern 7. Do not fire until the ceremonial exchange has been completed. On the main screen, the 2 fleets slowly moved toward each other like dancers in an ancient ritual. The Valori ships glowed brighter as they charged their crystal weapons. The Threnodi vessels extended long metal arms that crackled with energy. Captain Deho felt frustrated. Every tactical instinct told him the Threnodi were vulnerable. Their heavy ships moved slowly and their weapons took long times to charge. A fast strike at their flanks would scatter their formation. Sir, whispered Lieutenant Park So-min, the Valori are making a mistake. They're attacking the strongest part of the Threnodi line. I see it too, Deho replied quietly, but we have to follow their lead. The first exchange of fire was beautiful and pointless. Streams of crystal light met walls of metal energy. When the weapons hit, ships didn't explode. Instead, they simply stopped working and drifted in space. Their crews were perfectly safe, waiting to be picked up later. Casualty report, requested Admiral Kang from his flagship. 4 Valori ships disabled. 6 Threnodi ships disabled, reported Choi. No actual casualties. The battle continued for hours. Both sides followed the same pattern. Advance, fire, retreat, regroup. It was like watching a chess game played with real ships. Dr. Park studied the alien behavior carefully. She noticed something strange. When Threnodi ships were killed, their crews seemed almost relieved. When Valori ships were disabled, the remaining ships actually slowed down to make sure their friends were safe. They're not trying to win, she realized suddenly. They're trying not to lose too badly. Commander Kim had reached the same conclusion. This isn't warfare. It's a very expensive way to settle an argument. Then something unexpected happened. A group of young Threnodi ships broke from their formation. Instead of following the careful battle plan, they charged directly at the Valori center. Their commander, someone called Battle Singer Threndok, was apparently tired of the slow ceremonial fighting. Interesting, said Admiral Kang over the communication channel. Looks like not everyone is happy with traditional methods. The Valori were shocked by this change. Their perfect plan didn't account for enemies who ignored the rules. For a few minutes, chaos replaced ceremony. That's when Captain Deho made his decision. All human ships, this is Deho. We're going to help our Valori allies deal with this new situation. Sir, warned Choi, we're supposed to stay in formation and follow the engagement rules. The engagement rules just changed, Deho replied. When the enemy breaks formation, you exploit the opportunity. The human ships moved faster than any coalition vessel had ever moved in combat. While the Valori tried to reorganize their careful formation, the humans struck at the exposed Threnodi ships, but they didn't fight like coalition forces. Captain Zhang Wujin led a squad of human fighters in a coordinated attack. Instead of announcing their intentions, they used stealth. Instead of giving the enemy time to prepare, they struck without warning. Instead of using disable weapons, they targeted engines and weapon systems, human vessels. High Speaker Veltar's voice was sharp with alarm. You are not following proper engagement protocols. We're following human engagement protocols, Deho replied calmly. Our allies were in trouble. We helped them. The results were devastating for the Threnody rebels. In 10 minutes, the humans had disabled more enemy ships than the Valori had managed in 6 hours. But they had done it using tactics that no coalition species had seen for centuries. Battlesinger Threndok's ship was captured when human marines actually boarded it. The idea of physically entering an enemy vessel during combat was so alien to coalition thinking that the Threnody crew offered no resistance. This is unprecedented, reported Dr. Shin Yoonji, a military psychologist who was studying alien reactions. The Threnody crew is in shock. They can't understand why we entered their ship instead of just disabling it. Admiral Kang quickly called for a halt to human operations. The political situation was getting dangerous. Coalition observers were broadcasting urgent messages about human brutality and barbaric tactics. General Baek Shung-ho arrived on the flagship 12 hours later. As the supreme human military commander, his job was to smooth over the diplomatic crisis that Deho's actions had created. Captain, Baek said privately, what you did was tactically brilliant and politically disastrous. Sir, we were helping our allies, Deho protested. You terrified them, Baek replied. Look at the reports. Dr. Park had been analyzing alien communication since the battle ended. The results were disturbing. Sir, the Valori are calling us chaos bringers. The Threnody are demanding we be removed from the conflict entirely. What did we do wrong? Asked Major Yoon. We won. We saved Valori ships. We captured enemies without killing anyone. That's exactly the problem, Dr. Park explained. We won too completely. In coalition warfare, nobody is supposed to win decisively. Both sides are supposed to lose a little, then negotiate. Commander Kim had been quiet during the briefing. Finally, he spoke up. General, I don't think they invited us to help them fight. I think they invited us to see how different we are. What do you mean? Baek asked. Look at their reaction. They're not angry that we broke their rules. They're scared that we don't need their rules. Dr. Park nodded slowly. He's right. Every coalition species evolved away from aggressive warfare because it nearly destroyed them. They created these ceremonial battles to maintain military skills without the danger. But we never evolved away from warfare. Kim continued. We're still the same species that conquered our entire planet through superior tactics and technology. General Bayek stared out at the alien fleets, which were keeping much more distance from the human ships than before. So what happens now? Now they decide if they want us as allies or if they want us gone, Deho said. The answer came 3 days later. The Coalition Council sent a formal message. Human forces would be restricted to support roles only. No independent action. No tactical innovation. No boarding of enemy vessels. Captain Deho read the message with growing anger. They were being treated like dangerous children who couldn't be trusted with real weapons. But in the message, Dr. Park noticed something interesting. A small faction of younger coalition officers had sent a separate secret communication. They wanted to learn more about human tactics. It seems, she told Deho, that not everyone in the coalition is happy with ceremonial warfare. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked the same as always. But something had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in 800 years, someone had fought a war like they actually wanted to win it. The coalition didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn why that mattered. Dr. Lim Haewon had spent her entire career studying dead civilizations. As humanity's leading xenoarchaeologist, she specialized in finding the ruins of species that no longer existed. She never expected her expertise to become urgently needed for the survival of living ones. The emergency meeting included every senior officer in the human fleet and representatives from all 12 coalition species. The atmosphere was tense, but not because of the recent tribunal. Something much worse had their attention. The objects are definitely artificial, reported Admiral Kang Minho, displaying the sensor data on the main screen. We're tracking 47 massive structures moving in formation toward coalition space. Captain Lee Dae-ho studied the readings with growing alarm. Those aren't ships. They're too big. Each one is the size of a small moon. High Speaker Veltar's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. We have sent greeting messages on all frequencies. They do not respond to any communication attempts. Maybe they don't want to talk, suggested Commander Kim. Taewoo grimly, Elder Threnvor of the Threnody delegation, created a complex harmony that sounded distressed. All civilized species communicate before any hostile action. It is fundamental galactic law. Dr. Lim raised her hand from the back of the room. Actually, that might not be true. All eyes turned to her. She was nervous speaking to such high-ranking officials, but her research was too important to keep quiet. I've been studying ruins throughout Coalition space, she continued. Every member species has legends about ancient enemies called the Devourers or Star Eaters or similar names. I always thought they were myths. What kind of myths? Asked Dr. Park So-min. Stories about creatures that consumed entire star systems. Beings that practiced total warfare without mercy or negotiation. Lim activated her own display, showing ancient carvings and artifacts. Every Coalition species has similar stories, but they're all from thousands of years ago. War singer Casthor of the Castron delegation leaned forward with interest. The old songs speak of the time of ending, when warriors who knew only destruction came from the void. We have similar records, admitted High Speaker Veltar reluctantly. The crystal breaking when our ancestors were nearly extinct. But those are ancient history. Dr. Lim shook her head. I don't think they are. Look at this pattern. She showed a map of Coalition space with marked archaeological sites. Every major world has ruins from the same time period. Every species evolved their peaceful nature right after this period. It's like the entire galaxy decided to stop fighting real wars at exactly the same time, because something forced them to, realized Dr. Park. They learned that total warfare would get them all killed. Captain Dae-ho felt pieces clicking together in his mind. So they developed ceremonial warfare as a way to maintain military skills without the aggression that nearly destroyed them. Exactly, Dr. Lim confirmed. But humans never faced this threat. We never had to evolve away from our warrior nature. The discussion was interrupted by urgent alarms. The sensor operator's voice was tight with fear. Sir, the unknown objects have accelerated. They'll reach the outer Coalition worlds in 72 hours. Admiral Kang immediately ordered all human ships to battle readiness. Around the room, the alien representatives began their own emergency communications with their homeworlds, but the first contact with the newcomers didn't happen the way anyone expected. The Coalition sent their finest diplomatic ship, the Harmony of Understanding, to make peaceful contact with the approaching fleet. The ship was crewed by representatives from 6 different species and carried cultural gifts, historical archives, and detailed proposals for negotiation. It was destroyed without warning. The attack was so sudden and complete that the ship's emergency beacon only transmitted for 3 seconds. In that brief time, it sent a message that chilled every being in Coalition space. They're not communicating. They're just killing everything. Captain Jang Woo-jin was commanding a patrol squadron when the second wave of attacks began. The aliens didn't target military bases or strategic locations. They attacked refugee ships. Sir, reported Sergeant Lee Min-ho, long-range sensors show them destroying evacuation convoys from the outer systems. Evacuation convoys? Jang couldn't hide his shock. Those are civilian ships. Yes, sir. Unarmed transports carrying families away from the battle zone. This was beyond anything humans had encountered. Even in Earth's worst wars, most species tried to protect non-combatants. These attackers seem to prefer helpless targets. All ships, this is Captain Jang, he broadcast to his squadron. We're going to help those refugees. Sir, warned Lieutenant Park Dong-hyun, we don't have authorization for combat operations. Those people are going to die if we don't act, Jang replied. I'd rather face a tribunal than live with that. The enemy ships were unlike anything in Coalition space. They looked like massive chunks of twisted metal covered in weapon ports. No elegant design, no artistic elements, just brutal functionality. And they fought like nothing the galaxy had seen in centuries. When Jang's squadron engaged them, the enemies didn't follow any recognizable tactics. They didn't announce their intentions, didn't offer surrender terms, didn't try to disable human ships. They simply attacked with overwhelming force, trying to destroy everything in their path. They're not trying to win, realized Corporal Kim Yu-jin during the battle. They're trying to eliminate us completely. For the first time since joining the coalition, human forces found themselves facing an enemy that fought like they did, to win at any cost. The battle was brutal and decisive. Zhang's squadron managed to save most of the refugee ships, but they lost 2 of their own vessels in the process. Real losses with real casualties. When Admiral Kang received the battle report, he immediately called for an emergency council session. The enemy fleet consists of approximately 200 massive warships, he reported to the assembled coalition leaders. They practice total warfare. No communication, no mercy, no rules of engagement. This is impossible, protested Elder Threnvor. No civilized beings would conduct themselves this way. They're not civilized, replied Dr. Lim grimly. They're exactly what your ancestors faced thousands of years ago. The species that forced the galaxy to evolve peaceful warfare because the alternative was extinction. High Speaker Veltar's crystalline form was dimming with stress. Our fleet commanders report that traditional engagement protocols are completely ineffective. The enemy ignores all proper forms. Because they don't care about proper forms, Captain Deho said bluntly. They care about winning. War singer Casthor created a low, mournful harmony. Our warriors are trained for honorable combat. How do we fight beings who know no honor? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the room, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilization struggled with a terrible realization. Their evolution toward peace had left them defenseless against anyone who still practiced war. We need to call all coalition fleets back to core systems, suggested Admiral Kang. Concentrate our forces for a better defense. Our combined fleet numbers over 10,000 ships, said High Speaker Veltar with forced confidence. Surely that is sufficient. Dr. Park Somin had been quietly analyzing the enemy tactics during the meeting. Actually, she said hesitantly, I don't think numbers will help. Why not? Asked Elder Threnvor. Because they fight like humans, Park explained. They target weak points, exploit gaps in formation, and escalate until the enemy is completely defeated. Coalition tactics assume the enemy will follow the same rules you do. These enemies make their own rules. Captain Zhang's after-action report supported her analysis. Sir, they identified our most valuable ship in the convoy and targeted it first. They ignored the military escorts and went straight for the civilian transport with the most refugees. When we moved to protect it, they hit us from behind. Tactical thinking, recognized Commander Kim. They're not just fighting ships. They're fighting the people commanding those ships. General Baek Seung-ho's voice came over the communication channel from Earth. Admiral, I'm authorizing full deployment of human forces. This is what we were actually invited here for. Sir? Admiral Kang asked. Think about it, Baek continued. The coalition invited us just before these enemies arrived. They studied our warfare capabilities. They know something is coming that their peaceful evolution can't handle. Dr. Lim nodded slowly. The ancient records mention guardians who would return when the devourers came back. Warriors who remembered the old ways. You think they knew this would happen? Asked Captain Deho. I think some of them suspected, Lim replied. And I think that's why they really invited humanity to join the coalition. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked the same as always. But somewhere in that darkness, an enemy that practiced real warfare was approaching fast. The galaxy was about to learn whether 800 years of peace had been wisdom or fatal weakness. Fleet Admiral Huang Sujin had never expected to command the largest military force in galactic history. 3 days ago, she had been planning her retirement. Now she stood on the bridge of the coalition flagship, looking at tactical displays that showed the fate of 12 civilizations hanging in the balance. Admiral, reported Captain Oh Mi-young, the Devourer fleet has reached the Kepler 442 system. They're not taking prisoners. The tactical display showed a horror that no coalition species had witnessed in 8 centuries. The Devourers weren't just winning battles. They were sterilizing entire worlds. Every living thing, every structure, every trace of civilization was being systematically destroyed. How long until they reach the core systems? Huang asked. At their current pace, 72 hours, replied Commander Park Dong-hyun, the human logistics coordinator who had revolutionized coalition supply chains in just 1 week. Around the command center, Representatives from all 12 coalition species worked frantically to coordinate their defense. But their traditional methods were failing catastrophically. High Speaker Veltar's crystalline form flickered with desperate energy. Our combined fleet is the largest in recorded history. 10,000 ships from 12 worlds. How can we be losing? Captain Li Deho, now serving as Huang's strategic advisor, pointed to the battle reports. Because you're fighting 12 separate wars instead of one coordinated campaign. We follow proper military protocols, protested Elder Threnvor. Each species contributes according to their traditional strengths. That's exactly the problem, replied Dr. Park Soman, who had become the unofficial translator between human military thinking and coalition culture. The Devourers don't care about your traditions. They adapt to whatever you do and counter it immediately. War singer Casthor created a complex harmony that conveyed deep worry. Then how do we fight beings who have no honor, no rules, no limits? We beat them at their own game, Admiral Huang said firmly. But that means doing things the human way. The room fell silent. Even after witnessing human tactical effectiveness, the coalition species were still uncomfortable with the implications. Captain Zhang Wujin entered the command center with his latest reconnaissance report. His special forces teams had been conducting deep penetration missions behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence that no coalition force had ever attempted to collect. Admiral, we've identified the Devourer command structure, he reported. They use a hierarchical system with central coordination nodes. Take out the command ships and entire sectors of their fleet become uncoordinated. How do you know this? Asked High Speaker Veltar. We captured 3 of their smaller vessels and interrogated the crews. Zhang replied matter-of-factly. The alien representatives recoiled in shock. Capturing enemy personnel for interrogation was considered barbaric by coalition standards. You tortured prisoners? Elder Threnvor's harmonic frequencies indicated genuine horror. We asked them questions, Zhang corrected. They answered because they were more afraid of their own commanders than they were of us. Dr. Shin Yunji, who had been studying Devourer psychology, supported Zhang's assessment. The enemy operates on a fear-based hierarchy. Lower ranks will cooperate to avoid punishment from their superiors. This intelligence gives us our first real advantage, Admiral Huang announced. But exploiting it requires tactics that may disturb coalition sensibilities. She activated the main display, showing a comprehensive battle plan that no coalition species had ever conceived. We're going to hit their command ships simultaneously across multiple sectors, Huang explained. While their fleets are reorganizing, we'll strike their supply lines and destroy their ability to maintain extended operations. Warsinger Casthor studied the plan with growing amazement. This strategy requires perfect coordination across vast distances. How do you achieve such precision? By thinking like soldiers instead of diplomats, replied Commander Kim Tae-woo. Every human ship knows exactly what every other human ship is doing at all times. Captain Omi Young was assigned to lead the primary strike force. Her squadron would target the largest Devourer command ship, a massive vessel that coordinated 3 entire enemy fleets. Captain, Admiral Huang said privately, this mission is more dangerous than anything coalition forces have ever attempted. Are you prepared for that? Admiral, Oh replied, my grandfather fought in the Korean War. My father served in the Unification Campaign. Fighting impossible odds isn't new to my family. The final battle began with something the galaxy had never seen. Complete tactical surprise achieved through deliberate deception. While coalition diplomats broadcast surrender negotiations on all channels, human forces moved into position using stealth technology that the Devourers couldn't detect. The enemy assumed they were facing the same ceremonial warfare they had easily defeated for weeks. They were wrong. The attack commenced simultaneously across 47 different locations. Human ships struck without warning, without honor challenges, without any of the formal protocols that had governed galactic warfare for centuries. Captain O's squadron hit the primary command ship with everything they had. Instead of trying to disable it according to coalition custom, they targeted its critical systems with lethal efficiency. Direct hit on their command center, reported Lieutenant Kim Yoo-jin. Follow-up strikes on communications arrays and strategic coordination nodes. The Devourer response was immediate and vicious. They abandoned their systematic destruction of coalition worlds and turned their full attention to the human forces. All enemy fleets are converging on our position, warned Sergeant Lee Min-ho. They're abandoning their other targets. Good, O replied grimly. That means the plan is working. Across the galaxy, the same pattern was repeating. Human forces would strike hard at a critical target, then withdraw when the Devourers retaliated. But each strike left the enemy more disorganized and less coordinated. Admiral Huang watched the battle unfold from the Strategic Command Center. For the first time since the crisis began, coalition forces were winning. How are they doing this? Asked High Speaker Veltar, studying the tactical displays with amazement. They're thinking several moves ahead, explained Dr. Park. Every attack is designed to force the enemy into a disadvantageous position for the next attack. But they're taking enormous casualties, protested Elder Threnvor. Hundreds of human ships have been destroyed. That's the price of victory, replied Admiral Huang quietly. Coalition warfare tries to avoid all costs. Human warfare accepts necessary costs to achieve essential goals. The turning point came when Captain Zhang's infiltration team successfully captured a Devourer fleet coordinator. Under interrogation, they learned the enemy's ultimate weakness. They had no backup plans. They're nomads, Zhang reported. They've never faced organized resistance. Their entire strategy depends on overwhelming force against unprepared targets, but we're prepared now, realized Warsinger Casthor. The final phase of the battle showcased something the galaxy had forgotten, the devastating effectiveness of total warfare conducted by people who understood its true nature. Human forces didn't try to defeat the Devourers through superior technology or numbers. They defeated them through superior thinking, superior coordination, and superior commitment to complete victory. When the last Devourer command ship exploded under concentrated human fire, the enemy fleet didn't retreat in good order according to galactic custom. They fled in complete panic, abandoning equipment, supplies, and wounded comrades. Pursuit course laid in, reported Captain O from her battered but victorious flagship. Negative, Admiral Huang ordered. Let them go, sir? O asked, confused. We've proven our point, Huang explained. Sometimes showing mercy after total victory is more effective than total destruction. In the aftermath, as coalition forces began rescue and recovery operations, the alien species struggled to understand what they had witnessed. You could have destroyed them completely, said High Speaker Veltar. Why didn't you? Because the goal was never to destroy them, replied Admiral Huang. The goal was to make them understand that attacking this galaxy isn't worth the cost. Dr. Park was already working on new protocols for integrating human military doctrine with coalition values. We can teach your people to fight effectively without abandoning your peaceful nature, she explained to the assembled alien leaders. How is that possible? Asked Elder Threnvor. By understanding that real peace requires people willing to fight real wars when necessary, Captain Daeho answered. Not because they enjoy violence, but because they understand its proper use. General Baekseung-ho's message from Earth was brief but significant. Mission accomplished. Humanity officially accepts membership in the Galactic Coalition. As the human fleet began the long journey home, Admiral Huang reflected on what they had achieved. They hadn't just saved the galaxy from the Devourers, they had taught an entire civilization that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be better at war than anyone who wanted to disturb it. Warsinger Casthor's final message to the human fleet was broadcast on all frequencies. The old songs speak of guardians who would return in the time of greatest need today. We learned that some guardians never left. They simply waited for the moment when their gifts would be most needed. Thanks for this story.